Good evening. We welcome you on a little journey, cruising across the ocean, low on a helicopter heading out to sea towards a little island called Isla Nublar. Welcome to the Jurassic Park podcast. Well, we finally find ourselves here.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think this is your favorite film, right? No, it's not. We established that.
It's not. It's one of my favorites, though. I like Jurassic Park a lot. I like the book a lot better, actually. But that's not very surprising for our podcast.
Well, that's in the notes, so.
Yeah, so,
I think you're right, though. I have yet to read it, though.
yeah.
For what I read. I read about reading.
Yeah. So tell me, this podcast was your idea, which is surprising, because this is much more sort of my movie.
I give you a little freebie there. I mean, we have been talking about my stuff a little bit of late.
No, it's quite all right. So what sort of inspired this topic for our podcast?
Well, it started. We both kind of watched the film and we were familiar with it.
It's true. We both very much liked the movie.
We're also behind the curve on it, considering the fact it came out 25 years ago.
Yes, it did. Yeah, is it 25? Yeah, 1993. 93.
So 26. Still.
26. Close enough. So yeah. All right, so we are going to be diving in today with our I know part of what we want to talk about is I feel like everybody who doesn't sort of know the concept of Jurassic Park by now, they've kind of lost their right for a spoiler warning. So,
same thing with Star Wars at this point, in my opinion.
Yeah. So for those of you who don't know, for those of you who do know, just a quick recap. So the idea is sort of like, this company called InGen, they figure out some way to harvest dinosaur DNA from amber, and they splice it with frog DNA, and they use it to make these pseudo-dinosaurs, which is a lot more meaningful in the book than it is in the movie, but they make these but they do make these pseudo-dinosaurs, and they go amok, and that's the plot. It's an interesting plot. It's a classic. It's a cultural touchstone. Hardcore 90s icon. So
it's very timeless, though. I actually looked stuff up, and apparently they didn't use as much CGI as most people think. There's a lot of animatronics out of the movie.
I know, which makes it look so. Even though it was filmed, I think it was 12 years before eventually the third Jurassic Park, or it was filmed a while before the third Jurassic Park movie, and a lot before.
10 years between three. Three came out in 2003.
You're right. And a movie that came out in 1983 looks better than Jurassic World.
Yeah. Not that film, I don't blame people trying to take an easier route for the sequels, because when they made that film, they literally broke records for certain companies they used to make that film. Because I know, some company they used for, the T-Rex, that was, the biggest model or animatronic they built at that time.
Yeah.
No other movie required that much, hardware, so to speak, before them, essentially.
No, it was crazy. I that's one of those where it's you could watch hours upon hours upon hours about how they made that and not even see half of it. I mean, it's crazy. Did you ever see the one blooper in the movie where you see somebody's hand reach around and steady one of the velociraptors?
Oh, I want to see that now.
Yeah. Okay, it's actually a really famous scene too. It's when the first raptor knocks its way through the kitchen door. You can see a hand come out and straighten the tail.
Wow, I hope they have it on YouTube.
It's really shadowy though. Also, they misspelled Stegosaurus.
Really?
Yeah.
I think that's why that movie had so many like blooper gaps in it, because it just was so hard to like keep that all together.
Also, you gotta figure they built sets for all that. That's all
Yeah,
on
it's
set.
yeah, that's the funny thing. It's just so gutsy. They decided to actually do it like with on the set. Like before, I don't know if you know this, but like the movie Lost World from 1960, 30 years before Jurassic Park,
Yeah,
that was all stop motion and cutting to like live action.
I I just don't think we're ever gonna see that again. I just don't think we're ever gonna see movies that go full on into sets like that again. Well, I mean, we might. I'd love to see it if there were.
You need a good economy. That's why I
Yeah,
think there's the superhero thing. The superhero thing kind of died with Endgame, which um I'm okay with,
I
because it
hope it
means that
is.
we will pretty much get superhero movies anyway, but we'll also get a lot of original stuff. Like I did a video on a lot of the original films coming out in 2020,
Hmm.
and the more I research, actually I missed a lot. Interestingly enough,
Oh, really?
yeah.
I'd like to hear more about those.
My point is that I feel like maybe um, but also not to get political, we have an election coming up, and whatever uncertainty from people having a new president that might come out of economically or the policies might affect things too. So it might be short lived or it might be long lived, but I think we might be getting a break from the franchise noise here, is what I'm saying.
I think we could all stand that. Break from franchise noise. Oh my word! I'm like, I mean, I think I'm probably too harsh on superhero movies in general, but I'm
Yeah.
pretty sick of them.
Yeah, I'm kind of like midway. I mean, I don't know, like, but going back to what we said, you were talking about like the frog DNA and the stuff, to go
Hmm.
back into that. So yeah, kind of as sort of the scientific accuracy guy in here, you probably know that, DNA only has a half-life of 500 years in ideal conditions, right?
Hmm.
Okay, yeah. Um, yeah, actually, apparently I watched a really good video by one of my favorite um science YouTubers called Isaac Arthur, and he said actually that a good amount of the dinosaur DNA is in other animals, so it actually is possible that we will be able to clone dinosaurs, but it'll be from other animals. But the real challenge is where to how to how much of their environment to recreate, where to put the things, and how to socialize them in captivity, which actually interests me, like the fundamental reality of it all. So, you know what I'm saying here?
I get what you're saying. I will go back to part of the point of the book and challenge if they are actually dinosaurs, though. In that case, if you're sort of building them from different parts of different animals, I mean, you're making what you think a dinosaur is like
You're creating a
versus,
Frankenstein. It's kind of a
yeah,
retelling of Frankenstein in that way,
it is in a
in a
way.
perfect way, really.
There is a Promethean element to it. There definitely is a Promethean element to Jurassic Park, but it's very subverted.
Yeah, in some way, more like taken a different way than just deconstructed. But yeah, I know what you're saying.
Much more in the book. But yes.
So, what was the bigger thing about frog DNA? Just like a discussion of that, or what?
No, it was a bigger discussion about whether they were actually dinosaurs.
Okay.
It was saying, are they dinosaurs or are they monsters? That was a discussion that happened. As you had, some characters who really believed that they were monsters, and some characters who believed they were just as good as dinosaurs or even better dinosaurs, which is a theme that we don't actually get as movie viewers until Jurassic World. Even then, it's handled extremely clumsily.
Yeah, that's kind of a sloppy move to not even talk about that.
Yeah, I have to say, actually, after reading the book, I was surprised by the book, because I watched the movie first. But I would ultimately throw out there that the I think the ideal showing for Jurassic Park would honestly be a a mini series.
Hmm,
Would be a mini series that starts and ends in a courtroom.
really?
Yeah.
You really think it's got that much material just from the first book?
Yes.
First book, okay.
Yes. Because even like the second movie, the second book is one of those things best left alone on an island by itself.
Literally.
Yes.
So I think what we're getting at is that this is kind of an example of neo-romanticism and possibly even early metamodernism, possibly. Um, it's kind of funny, like when it came out, 89, traditionally for a lot of people, that's the last year of modernism, and 93 would be 4 years into postmodernism. What do you think about that?
I mean, as you know, I kind of peg postmodernism more in the '60s. I think that's where we really start to see the shift away. But
Well, that makes sense with countercultural, but I think 89 I pick because of the Berlin Wall and Tiananmen, as well as the launch of the global internet that same year, which comes basically up to a triple threat, which I think can't be ignored. But I think you definitely have the postmodern ideas that started there. I think the word postmodernism was first came in a book published in 1979, as we understand it, which makes me just say that postmodernism as a era is kind of less when the term is thought up of when it became popular and possible in a daily
mm,
sense, which I won't go into now, but that's why I'm saying 89. But go on.
so it's not a modern. I don't think it's a modernist novel because we often understand we often misunderstand the term modernist. But I will say it's not very modernist in that it doesn't really delve into its character's psyche. It doesn't really explore it's not a study of the broken human at all. I mean, it's not Virginia Woolf. It's not James Joyce. It's not digging into that inner part. It is romanticist in some ways because it does show the triumph of nature over technology. And it's very technologically researched. I mean, it's very dense. The book is very dense with technological jargon,
That's why.
technologic.
Did it
Techn-
ruin it for you, or no?
no, because it usually explained what it was, like
Okay.
in pretty.
In the form of thoughts of characters, or is pure prose?
Pardon?
Was it explained through the action, the thoughts and dialogue of the characters, or like the author actually writing in like
No,
stuff?
it'd be like instead of saying it's a XPJ whatever, like oh, it's an XPJ 5 supercomputer set, and it's like oh, I know what
Okay.
that is.
Oh,
Like oh, I may not know what that specific thing is, but I know what that genre of thing is.
okay.
So and like it often explained like what they look like and like what they did.
Okay.
So that was usually like characters like oh, what does that do? Like cause like some like a lot of those characters weren't computer people or weren't like oh, what does that do? Like that's a pretty logical question because you had to deal with so much technology.
Hmm.
Um,
I, I mean, like, going back to what I said, like, what I meant by neo-romanticism is like, yeah, like the one of the big thing is that is like kind of like the wrongness of taking dinosaurs back to our environment, like when not so much that like when we've like oh look we've ruined things, but like certain things replaced dinosaurs and they did so for a reason, like kind of like the wrongness of it. And you have this kind of also this Gaia hypothesis like idea of life finds a way, which I don't even know if it was in the original book or not.
it is the idea is it's much more embedded with chaos theory than it is with the Gaia hypothesis.
Okay.
Um, which
Which you
it,
think from authorial intent, that's what actually Crichton intended.
I think Crichton wanted more of a focus on the chaos theory. I won't count out the Gaia hypothesis, but considering how technological his writing often
Yeah, he's
is,
not really spiritual or new agey, is he?
he's not. Even his novel about the Earth, State of Fear, was not very Gaia
Okay.
idea. I read it. It was pretty. Yeah, no. If he assigns anything some sort of unusual life, I would argue that it's the computer creature. That's the computers that sometimes take on elements of life, but not even in this novel either.
So is there more of a subplot with the computers screwing up during the hurricane than in the movie where just like Dennis Nedry messes things up and he's at the helm, or what?
Oh, right. So part of the thing is that John Arnold, John Ray Arnold, John Ray Smoking Arnold. So he part of really sort of the main error that happens is that he's running all the computers to run set counts. So it's count. So
For
it's
what? For, like making the park open or what?
no, for keeping track of the animals.
Okay.
So it's Seek 240. So it's like I think it's like Seek 214 or 116 or something like that. So that, like they go, oh, animal, 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 116 animals, 116 animals, 116 animals, and then until somebody finally points out like because they were saying that oh, there's a boy dinosaur. Somebody noticed a boy dinosaur.
Okay, yeah, I know that was a plot in the
Yeah, and he's like,
saying, oh, we're noticing mutations is basically the
yeah, he's like
idea.
saying it's not possible. There's 116. There's 116 dinosaurs on the island. There still is, and then they ran the check for like. They ran the check for like okay, go 216 and up, and they came back with like 250 dinosaurs. Like so, it's like
I think what happened was there was a sex mutation, and then it got pregnant and like made.
Yeah, that was the same sort of thing. The raptors are a little bit dumber in the book. The T-Rex is a little bit smarter. There's actually a scene where the T-Rex goes alligator and chases them in a raft, which is pretty cool. The pterodon attack from the third movie is actually in the first book. So yeah, it's the book. The book is interesting. The book goes a lot more into how the park actually operates.
This can't really translate very well in a movie.
It wouldn't. Again, like so I said, you'd have to make it a mini series because there's too much content for that plot to be coherent in a 2-hour movie.
Okay.
Which is so I understand why they combined the ideas of Ed Regis and Donald Gennaro into one character who ended up not mattering. I understand why they made Alan Grant, Sam Neill, a more likable hero. I understand why they went for full sexy sexy Goldblum. So it's interesting. I don't consider them similar entities. I have to say that I think that Jurassic Park is one of the worst curated franchises. Yeah, it's one of the worst curated franchises. I mean, there's the plot continuity between the book, between the movies, between the official comic books. Like they
Crichton or no or IDW or what?
Creighton approved them. They
Okay.
they're actually pretty good. They're pretty good. They're pretty well regarded. At least the original series was. And that sort of follows the movie, but also draws in some stuff from the book, but also some other stuff. And then and they took a couple ideas from that into Jurassic World, but also Jurassic World just kind of went off and did its own thing, and I don't think it did it very well.
I think the reason why this is happening is because with Jurassic Park, the book, you had a lot of great ideas, but you needed to sum up for like a blockbuster, and then they took that blockbuster and got popular overseas. So you had to make Jurassic World, which is like popular with like what you remember as nostalgia, and also for a Chinese audience. If that makes any sense. It has to do with its own legacy as well as in nostalgia.
As in like being appealing to like other large markets like
exactly.
China and East Asia.
Its market literally got bigger as it got on.
Yeah, the market went huge. Like this, oddly enough, it's something that they predict in the first movie, like Jurassic Park, or at least maybe in the book, like Jurassic Park San Diego, Jurassic Park Tokyo, Jurassic that was a more of a thing in the book too.
Like Disney World, only the Pirates of the Caribbean didn't need the guests on the first day.
Yes, I'm pretty sure that's in the book if I remember correctly.
That line.
I think it's in the book. I'm trying to remember now. But so yeah, so that's it. Also the people who run InGen are a lot less stupid in the book, which I think makes it more enjoyable.
Because then their mistakes feel more genuine or relatable.
Yeah.
Instead of being like plot movers.
Yes. And I mean Dennis Nedry doesn't really change at all. But oddly enough, the guy at the restaurant he's talking to, Lewis Dodgson,
Yeah.
Louis Dodgson is the main antagonist, and also you get a ton from his point of view in the second book.
Really?
Louis Dodgson. Still the most F-bombs I've ever seen dropped on a page. Louis Dodgson.
He seemed decent in the movie, but whatever.
Dodgson! We got Dodgson here! And see, that doesn't make any sense in the movie unless you read the book.
Why?
Because well, the name Dodgson doesn't mean anything unless you read the book. Because in the movie, just some guy. It's just some guy in a restaurant named Dodgson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's like co-conspirator or what? Because I think he's the guy who he talked to over like the walkie-talkie or whatever.
Yeah. From no, he talked to somebody else over that, but Biosyn is the rival to InGen, and they have kind of like InGen has like umbrella corporation levels of stupidity in the movie. In the book, they're a little less dumb. I didn't say smart.
Kind of bureaucratic, which kind of goes with the theme of like having things run on their own and gone wrong.
Technology and ethics.
It's a little bit Brazil-like, in a way.
Brazil. All right.
Another character that I know that you probably know a lot about reading the book, but that would be in Malcolm. I've read that it has more, well, we talked about this, more of a focus on chaos theory and statistics, including something called dragon curves, which, like, I'm not really sure what that is. Do you know anything about that?
I remember the dragon curve part, but I remember zoning out through it. Like that's a dull section. I do remember his explanations of chaos theory, and he chalks certain stuff up to chaos theory throughout the book, and explains it sort of several times, while the other characters don't really get it. So like it's never quite established in the book whether he's right or kooky.
Oh really?
Yeah. It doesn't really. No.
So, like, does that play any role in, like, the book itself? Like, expanding things? What do you think, like, he was even trying to say with that?
I don't know, because, see, Malcolm leans so much on it in the first book that he becomes almost unlikable, but then, as he moves on to the second book, he, like, kind of steps away from chaos theory a little bit. Like he explores it he explores it a bit, but not always. Like definitely not the same. Like he doesn't have the same level of interest in the Lost World. It's almost like he's kind of like, yeah, but like there.
Is it just like to have a character that can point? Because in the movie he was kind of like this. Have a character point out how things could go wrong and knows why on a more technical level.
Yeah.
Or is there something more than that?
Yeah, no, like that is something that is true about Malcolm in both the movie and the book, is he kind of spends most of the movie laying on his back making fun of everybody.
Really? So more comedic relief though in the book, it sounds like?
No, in the book he's very kind of straight-laced, deadpan. More of the comic relief is actually, but brutally honest, there's not a lot of comic relief in the book. The comic relief is usually the kids, if there is any. Really? But the book is kind of like, the movie is very good about being like this sort of emotionally. It's never really settled. It's never like low energy. It's not like,
well, it's supposed to be kind of a thriller more or less.
Yeah, it's not like build. It's like whoo, 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 like that. Like the book's much more. The screw just keeps getting tighter and tighter. Whereas the movie's sort of up and back in and out.
Interesting. So it sounds like you almost don't understand certain things, which I don't blame you for, but it almost sounds like you can understand it on a general way, but there's deeper stuff going on that's kind of Crichton's playing with.
Yeah. I know this may sound kind of weird, but like out of Crichton, I've read a lot of Michael Crichton's books, and I think this and like this one and the Andromeda Strain are the only two that are kind of deep. Like
I read Andromeda Strain too, and I think I know what you're talking about. It makes me not want to read his other stuff.
Yeah, it's those like he has some good books. He has some good books. I thought State of Fear was at least interesting. State of Fear is at least interesting and pretty good. Prey was good until the end. But like he also
I mean, there's kind of a reason why those
yeah
are the only two books that got like big adaptations anyway.
yeah like he also had some pretty bad ones like
Sphere wasn't that good, was it? I know the movie.
oh
Was
no,
terrible.
Sphere was good. Sphere was
Oh,
actually
really?
a really good book. Sphere was I take it back. I think Sphere might have been Sphere was deep at least, or at least it certainly tried to be. I liked Sphere. The ones like something like Timeline is terrible. Timeline's an awful book. Like nobody should ever read Timeline. It's so bad, so bad. um, Oddly enough, you might like that because time travel, but also nothing makes sense in that book. The plot doesn't make sense. The characters doesn't make sense. Nothing makes sense.
Yeah, I think I'd rather take my time to watch Steins Gate.
Yeah. Next may be my least favorite novel of all time. Next
Really?
by Michael
Least
Crichton.
favorite but not hated.
It's so bad. It's a terrible. It it's like the beginning. Let's see it involves a stolen chimp, venereal diseases, and the end ends up with sort of like the main antagonist who's actually kind of the good guy getting shot by a pedophile at a Six Flags. I'm
Wow.
not kidding. I'm not kidding.
Sounds like a fanfic.
It's so outrageously stupid. Airframe is actually pretty good. Airframe's a pretty good novel, but it's slow. Airframe is slow, but it's if you really like watching air disasters, you'll like Airframe.
Yeah, he seemed to like want to dive into like for some reason pulp a little bit, like his pirate novel. Like I don't know if he was
the pirate one's bad.
Like losing ideas and just like trying whatever.
Yeah.
Like Nintendo in the early 2010s.
Yes, it's like
or what was going on there because he died in 2008. And I don't even know. I'm like on one hand, it's like did we lose like really good ideas from him dying or what?
He was kind of 50-50. I'm pretty sure he had some sort of deal worked out where if he made one good, interesting novel, he had to make one terrible novel.
Yeah, like some deal with the devil. He's like the Michael Moorcock of sci-fi.
Yeah, it's like because they're like so yeah no so I recommend Sphere. I recommend the Andromeda Strain. I really recommend Jurassic Park. I really recommend Jurassic Park and Sphere. Andromeda Strain, yes, because it's scary without ever being scary. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the ending is such a let. I'm not sure how else you possibly end it though.
Yeah.
Like the ending is so appropriate, but also so incredibly deflating.
I don't know. I feel like he almost is a better scientist than the story writer. He's like a scientist trying to be a story writer. He's not like Shane Carruth. Like we gotta balance of both.
I hear that. Do you want to tackle the thing about the characters? I know you're talking about.
I was just gonna ask you real quick what your Do you have a favorite novel from him other than Jurassic Park, Sphere, and Andromeda Strain, or not really?
Pretty much just Jurassic Park and Sphere. I liked those. I thought those were like Sphere and Sphere actually messed with your head. Jurassic Park is interesting because it's a summer novel, not because it's stupid, but because it needs the atmosphere. It needs the time. It's not a fast novel. It's not something you can sit down and read in one sitting. I'm sure people can, but it's not a short book.
You wouldn't want to read it.
You wouldn't want to read it in one sitting because I think you'd miss some of the complexity of it. The thing about Michael Crichton's novels is they're all very left brain. They're intensely left brain novels, which is something that I can do every once in a while, but I can't do all the time.
Well, maybe that's who really should have directed Jurassic Park. Shane Carruth, 22-year-old Shane Carruth.
Zoom past window, but they're hungry. I'm gonna go get a candy, but just like it'd be interesting.
Dinosaurs stopped and look at each other and have realistic dialogue. About quantum mechanics.
It'd be interesting, but it'd also be. But see, then we need they need to come up with a feature length movie explaining the first movie. Oh wait, that happened. That did. That's what the Lost World was.
Oh, maybe.
The Lost World was the movie that explained the.
It's like how they had what's that one anime? The one with the little girls who try to kill each other.
Madoka Magica.
No.
No.
It might have been that.
Not sure.
Yeah, but yeah, that's kind of a reference to an older video for those who don't know about our primer podcast. About having to watch a video to understand that.
Oy. So actually,
Tim Burton was almost picked to be the director of Jurassic Park, if you can believe it.
Victorian Jurassic Park could be cool, but it wouldn't be as cool. I think it needs that sort of sterile museum, like 90s hospital vibe. I think that's something that carries over very well. The aesthetic carries really well.
Like a hospital that got converted into Disney World, you know?
Yeah.
The gift shop scene. I kind of wish there was a little bit more of that. I don't know.
Yeah. See, the thing is, that nailed the aesthetic. The book to the novel, they had the same aesthetic, and that helped. That's part of what helps the reader if you watch the movie first. It has the same aesthetic. I will agree with you, but you pointed this out, but like you told me this earlier, but sort of the Roger Ebert review.
Yeah, this kind of goes into the movie, but yeah, like you saw what I had for quotes, right?
Yeah, I agree with I agree with his half-realized sketched-in personalities.
Ragtag bump, yeah.
Yeah, no, it doesn't have time for that. I mean, but like you know, neither does Die Hard. But we don't rag on Die Hard for it, because that's not the point of Die Hard.
Well, I think the point that Ebert was trying to make is that he's seen Spielberg do much better with much less earlier in his career. Like he said, like he did a better job with Jaws with Brody and Captain
That's true.
Kidd. And he used a smaller cast, which is a bit easier because you have less characters to develop. But he could have had less characters, you see.
Which is, I agree that he could have. But then again, he also already trimmed down the cast significantly from the book, at least. Especially like we lost a lot of screen time. We lost a lot of screen time for John Hammond, Dr. Wu, and Ray Arnold. Ray Arnold and Muldoon lost a ton of screen time.
Yet I don't feel like he did the best he could with that movie.
Again, that's a big one, because I don't know, because it's easier with the smaller cast, because here's the thing is you have a trio in forced isolation in Jaws versus a cast in forced isolation in Jurassic Park.
Again, maybe you're right about being a TV show the more that you talk about it, honestly.
Yeah. However, I don't know about his dinosaur point. Like the dinosaur should be like the shark in Jaws shouldn't tell for the first hour because it kills the wonder and suspense.
Well, it's kind of a different genre because you're kind of asking Jurassic Park to be a horror, and I don't think that it worked.
Jurassic Park isn't a horror movie.
You could have been it's a gory rated R movie, but I don't think you should.
Which is interesting because the novel starts like a horror movie, but it doesn't at all end like a horror movie. It has some like, it's a suspense movie. But is Jaws a horror movie?
I don't know. I mean, like it's hard to say, but I do think that the strongest point for Jurassic Park as a film is like the wonder and Spielbergian epicness that you could only have on that budget with unprecedented technology, with a tried and true filmmaker from the 80s and 70s, you know, kind of peaking in a certain way. Well, peaking and not, you know, before Saving Private Ryan and all that. But you know what I'm saying here? Like the awe is kind of like his his finest hour in a way.
I'm inclined to agree because I think if you take away sort of the spectacle of it, you lose so much of it. Like even in the novel doesn't lose the spectacle of it, which I think is especially important in the movie because I mean, but see, the movie does do a good thing because it keeps the raptors hidden. Because the raptors are the real monster. The T Rex is the real monster. They're hidden, but you get to see the spectacle. I mean, I guess does everybody kind of remember the time the T Rex showed up? Yeah, the T Rex isn't a spectacle.
Wasn't the T-Rex the animal that got like the big ox that was being lowered down to it?
That's the Velociraptors.
Yeah, see, that was kind of a. See, I think that they maybe you needed like a scene with that with the T-Rex instead. Like you needed more of a villain maybe established in a sense.
I mean,
Was there more of a
establish.
sense of danger as well as wonder? I don't know. What you think that was properly developed or
I don't
what?
know. So I always thought of the T Rex as big and dumb, whereas the Raptors were the villain.
Oh,
The
really?
Raptors were the antagonists. But then again, the T Rex is a lot more of a malevolent character in the book. The Raptors are a little less so.
So they're like the dogs in John Wick. No.
Not that much. Like as in they're closer to the Raptors in the Lost World or not even the Lost World, really Jurassic Park 3. Uh,
So what is like assuming that he could make it a TV show or whatever, what would you like think the number one thing would be to fix for the film adaptation?
it'd have to switch voices a lot. Giving each person's individual view might be interesting.
Hmm.
Because that's what the book does. The book jumps characters almost every chapter. I'm pretty sure the only character we don't get to see from their view, I think, is Henry Wu. I think he's the only person that we don't ever get to see from their point of view.
Interesting.
Maybe Malcolm. I'm not sure if we ever get to see from Ian Malcolm's point of view.
So I think the greater point we're coming to is just it would have been a miniseries best.
It would have been a long miniseries too. It had a lot of content. So let's see. We covered the Neo-Romanticist. We covered the Chaos Theory. We covered does the sequels of book hold up. I think we're getting towards the anti-capitalist one. I agree. It's not anti-capitalist. It's anti-unethical.
Yeah, but I also said like the idea that like it kind of happened when it did, like when the Soviet Union fell.
Yeah.
That, like I almost feel like Crane almost made like a Cold War story here. But he said that there was he's going to make it be about a student actually initially.
I wonder if it would have been about Ellie.
Project. What?
Wonder if it would have been about Ellie.
Maybe. I mean, in his mind,
Yeah.
but like, it was about. It turned out to be like about like a company because that's the only way it could have been done. Like it only was out of necessity, not out of theme, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And because of the way that the world went back then.
Yeah. It is rather of its time, which is interesting. Because when things are of their time, you always wonder how well it ages. I think it's aged better than most novels of that vintage, like realistic novels of that vintage.
If it captures its time well, like it captures the spirit of the moment and comments on it well, like it's trying to be contemporary and nails it, I think that's good. But you think it does, or what?
I think it captures its moment well because it is essentially it is a retelling of a story that took place a few years earlier.
And it's ultimately retelling of Frankenstein, which does make it timeless. So I don't think it's like it's not timeless. It's not like Brazil where it like tries to make itself retrofuturistic so it can hide its age basically in everything except for the effects and what actors are being used.
Retrofuturistic. Retrofuturistic is either brilliant or it's used to hide age.
Either way, I think it can work.
I think it does work
well.
But
I remember what I was going to say is that with the film is kind of like ignoring the sequels that there's nothing else like it. Like as a film, like a book you can write pretty well and you can pull it off like nothing compared to a film. But as a film, like it's really unique. Like even with its flaws, which I don't think kind of prevents it from being a masterpiece and having the possibility of a remake in the form of a TV series or a movie in the future being a possibility. But Also, it's very atmospheric. I don't know why. Maybe just because it is unique
It
and
is.
come in with it like, especially like since all of us had like the first time we watched it experience, even if we did watch the sequels first, you know.
Yeah, no, it's the atmosphere of the novel of the movie. It's so palpable. It's like, oh, there's something so wild, and, like, unsettling but fascinating about, like, having, like, high technology and the jungle just, like, smashed up against each other.
And just like the idea of the dinosaurs like there, like the wide shot that's used when they're revealed, and just like I don't think the film had a 3D release when it first came out, but like the raptors, or not raptors, but like the dinosaurs rushing past them, like they're gonna go into like the audience.
Yeah, no, and it's funny, even though you know it's coming. Man, that raptor coming through the breaker still makes you scream every time. You know it's coming.
It's like that dead body hitting the glass in the
In
Dark Knight. That's another thing that always will work. And the explosion from the airlock from Interstellar. See,
the eye from Jaws.
yeah, jump
Yeah.
scares can work
Like,
sometimes.
if they're good and they actually serve a purpose in the movie. All right, so are we ready to move on to the questions?
Well, I was just gonna say
Oh,
with
sure.
Jurassic Park, do you feel like it had sort of this, feature X about it? Like this 20th century look. Maybe just with not just with the CGI, but like feel and urgency of it. Like, what I'm saying is kind of like hard, like just the way that they talk, and maybe just the fact that Spielberg was just such a big influence on late 20th century films. I mean, I don't know. It's just like,
I think there's something to that. One, the music is very nostalgic.
it's John Williams, so
Yeah.
he's been around. He's been doing stuff since the
Yes.
'60s with Lost in Space and everywhere in between.
Yeah. The movie is just at the right level where it's like you can still kind of show it to your kids. So
Yeah,
it's like it's something that you can watch almost your whole life. It's a movie with enough humor in it so that it doesn't get drudge. It doesn't become a drudge or just suspense. And I think he may not make the characters very deep in the movie, but he gives you the idea of them and makes that idea likable.
how so?
Like you may think that, wow, Ian Malcolm is kind of a butt, but he's funny butt. Like, you know what I mean?
That's true. Yeah,
Yeah. It's like, this is funny. It's got, because see, it was Spielberg took the parts of the book that were tropes, and he strung them together. He strung them together into a very, very effective chain that never gets broken. It is a pretty tropey movie,
yeah,
but
not pulpy, but I don't know. Like, so is Star Wars, but like,
yeah,
and the Matrix, but at the same time, it isn't. Doesn't make it bad.
I mean, ultimately, most stories are tropey in some way. I mean,
Mm,
we have them for a reason.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. Um, Also, I don't know if you agree with this, but I think kind of the reason of like 20th century movies being the way they are is just because like just during the Cold War, like you kind of felt like you're don't read this too much, but like during the Cold War, like you always felt like this day could be your last because nuclear annihilation,
Yeah.
as well as this greater idea of progress and trying to beat out, the enemy, whether it wasn't the World Wars or the Cold War. I kind of feel like that was like the last like oomph of it, as well as maybe possibly like the impending disaster, supposedly of Y2K. Even though it wasn't, most people did agree that it wasn't really going to be a disaster. Kind of kid people like it's kind of like why people think that the films of 1999 are so good. Just like they had like the world wasn't really ending, but people acted like it did, like back in the Cold War, to give people like an excuse to make great films.
Interesting. It's an interesting idea, actually.
I never thought of it.
No, I never really did, actually.
Yeah.
My thought is it was sort of like the last time, one of the last times where people would be okay with us versus them. Because the Jurassic Park, it is very much an us versus them. Because we don't get along. None of us get along. But we're not the them out there. And that's such a Cold War thing, because like in the Cold War, it's us and the Soviets, it's us and them. In economics, it's the Japanese, it's us and them. So I think it's interesting because it does play on those themes. Even in the book, it does.
I don't think we ever outgrew that, but if you mean in a multinational way, as opposed to people groups and image
Yeah.
tribes of postmodernism and hyper
Yes.
individualism, yes, I kind of do see that. But I think it was more of
Yeah.
a thing with how we interacted with technology and the bomb
Yeah.
and this idea of progress.
It went from a national us versus them to a subset us versus them, and people philosophers will go on and on about saying like, oh, this is so good. It's like oh, this is healthy that we've moved away from bigger groups to smaller groups, which is the exact opposite of modernism. And I don't know if it's a bad thing or a good thing that we moved away from bigger groups to smaller groups. You know what? It is what it is.
So one last thought. So this is a big film for you. I know, again, not your favorite, but has it influenced your fiction in any significant way?
Um, I think it made me research stuff more, like research
Oh,
stuff more, so
that's cool.
so the setting is consistently appropriate to an informed person.
Okay.
I think that's fair because that's something that he does. Even if the science is kind of hooey, the science has all the right stuff, and the stuff does what it's supposed to do.
And for the record, kids, Isla Nubar is not a real island.
No, it's not. So yes, tribalism. I don't even know. I find it very funny that like big groups into smaller groups that people are still arguing about like people are still arguing about like collectivism versus individualism versus nationalism versus individualism. And it's like they're all really the same concept. You're just moving from big groups to small groups. They
I
really
think
are.
that kind of goes into Q&A time, if you don't mind.
Oh yes, please.
Yeah, yeah, since we're on the subject, Scalies, bronies, or furries?
Furries.
Okay,
They're more cuddly.
yeah, good point.
All right, for me, for you, mostly related. What's your favorite kind of dinosaur?
Oh, my one friend Isaiah is gonna kill me, but I don't know, but what's the one that's aquatic? That one I always thought that one was cool.
There are several that look like plesiosaurs.
Was it had gills? I know one might have had gills.
But might have had gills. The megalodon, giant
Yeah,
shark.
whichever one had gills. Well, let's just say it's a megalodon for,
Okay, cool. Not really a
saying.
dinosaur, but it's cool.
Yeah,
Okay. You have one for me, sir, I presume.
yeah. How much do you think the public ought to know of a writer's personal beliefs? Do you think it can hinder or help the understanding of their work?
Interesting. That's again. That's a modernist versus postmodernist thing. The modernists were like, no, the writer should never, ever reveal what they think about anything, because that would be a detriment to the critical process.
And yet they upheld authorial intent, really.
Some did. The formalists didn't.
Oh, well, yeah, I guess there wasn't a complete consensus on it.
Not, but then her postmodernism was very much like, you need to write what you feel, write what you are, write what
And
you.
the author is dead and can only be looked at as under certain image tribes. It doesn't matter what they thought or what they intended.
Yeah,
It can't be approached, apparently.
that's very much what we study. How it's very much how we study literature in colleges now.
And do you know what, though? I don't think acting like the author is dead actually works.
It
Like,
doesn't.
the only way I've seen it done, not well, but attempted, was with the Wachowskis, of how they try to make certain works neutral in a way, kind of making them what I like to call Rorschach films, like The Matrix. They have a lot of references to things, but they don't add up to a lot of things. Like they have references to, like, Neo's called, this guy's personal Jesus Christ, and they have, Morpheus saying, how far does the rabbit hole go? But when you add them up through the entire course of the film of what these guys say and what they don't say, it doesn't add up to much. But then you watch their other films, and you got like V for Vendetta, which is an anti-fascist film essentially. You have Cloud Atlas, which is also an anti-fascist, critical theory leftist film. And then you look at The Matrix, and that kind of has those themes too. And then you do have a theorical intent because you see their personal lives and you see what they wrote, and then you can go back and actually read it. So they were just writing themselves the entire time, but all the time they claimed that the author was dead, and this can mean whatever you want.
I like to build off that. I actually kind of agree with postmodernism on this one, because the formalist theory just it doesn't work. They say that you can't ever ask the author what they mean, and I think even many formalist writers say no. That like there's one part there's like Eliot has some interesting stuff on that.
Also, do what's another funny thing? I
Yeah,
think that we live in the age of data, and
yeah.
ignoring, who data belongs to, how much is it consensual, whatever, who does data belong to. Just by like someone who is completely off social media, like Amish people, like they're contributing data in a way every time they buy something at the grocery store, and that data is going to be around for pretty much a long time. It might be lost, it might be corrupted, but it's going to be around for a long time. So with the day of social media and people even hacking, people are going to know what an author thinks. Sooner or later, information is going to come to light, or you're going to say something, and someone's going to compile it and going to go, for lack of a better word, exegete it, and going to figure out how you believe and how you think, and they'll figure out your religion and your date of birth and your race, and then they'll put things together. So I think it's actually, the more I think about it, it's kind of inevitable, actually.
Yeah, I just don't see it in the modern age. And again, with that, going from bigger groups to smaller groups. Like I mean, if you follow, it's sort of all along the same train, and it's like that people are saying like, oh well, like this is evil for what it is versus what it does. Like it's like it's like say like individualism is evil because it discounts the well-being of other people. That's not why it is, because that's not what it is. Like you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean,
Okay.
like it kind of goes back to like, I think what metamodernism is, for people who don't know, it's kind of a plant successor to postmodernism, that it kind of seeks for a balance in things,
Mm-hmm.
and includes things like this. Because sometimes really you look at things and they're really not one or the other; they're a combination in you know non-trivial, unique patterns. Everyone is part of a collective and not part of a collective, and
Precisely. It's like when you see people go into like one, like you see like extremes, like extreme collectivism or nationalism, like on one end, they're like so intensely focused on the external self. Like I'm thinking of like World War I, like British propaganda, like war
oh,
propaganda, like so far on one end. Then you have like existentialism and individualism on the farther side, and it's like they're both ultimately rubbish.
and
They're on the same spectrum, and people don't realize it. The people be
they're on
like,
the same island looking at each the same, like, I imagine like two guys on the same desert island who are like staying on the opposite ends with binoculars looking at each other, and they think they're on like a different place. What I'm not saying those things are dead, but I think they're much harder with the internet, because you don't see a lot of collectivism and individualism. You see hyper individualism and tribalism because of
that's
the way that
true.
the internet is. And at this point, we're just getting more of it because of America's social influence, which I'm fine with, but
Mm-hmm.
and more people are using it, and I think it'll not guarantee, but it'll go along that path.
And it's funny in each of those things, each of like those like just like the four things that I named. There's kind of a thing that every society says, well, that's an acceptable amount of that. But if you go too far, you're a kook. And rightfully so, you are a kook if you go if you go like to those extremes.
Well, this is why I think metamodernism isn't upon us yet, because it's not really it's not impossible to have a balance, but in our daily lives of social media, where you can just talk about yourself and your group with the squad, like it's so
It's
much,
okay.
balance is very hard.
Balance and metamodernism is it's sort of the it's sort of the It's sort of the idea behind the Church of England. It's the middle way. We don't necessarily, we're not here or here. We're we're gonna find the middle way so
I'm
everybody
pretty sure
gets some stuff.
middle way is from Taoism, but I was actually going to compare Metamodernism to Taoism. Not that I
Actually, you're not wrong because metamodernism returns to some of the laws of making classics.
but also it's neo-romanticist that the Taoists looked to nature to find peace and wisdom and luck, really.
And there is a sublime. There's an auspicious nature to the reality things.
Yeah,
There's a
it might be God, but it might
sublimity.
not be. We don't know. We're
Yes.
oscillating to the sublime. We're not skeptics, but we're not believers exactly. Well, some of us are.
We're skeptics, but we know there's something. Taoism. Wow, we actually got kind of deep there.
Yeah.
So, in other words, metamodernism is sort of the compromise between kooks. Like, you should live life. Is that our message? Like, don't live life like a kook? So in other words, people, don't go out there. Don't be Hitler. Don't be what's his name? Don't be Henry David Thoreau. Don't be China. Don't be libertarians. Live in the middle. Maybe
You have one more question for me.
Oh yes, I do.
Okay, that's fine.
So that was kind of our message. So this is coming to you. We've had some really nice weather this week.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so we're getting into school. We're getting into the season where people start to read books a lot.
Okay.
Is there a book that you really associate with the changing of summer into fall?
Not really. I'm
Okay.
reading The Vor right now, which is kind of about nature.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I mean, the thing I'm thinking about right now that I associate with fall is Alice's Restaurant, which I know your family doesn't like.
I like it. My family doesn't. I like it.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that's a fun one. That's a good choice. Because
I like. This cost of sounding girly. I like more softer fiction.
In fall.
Thoughts around fall. Yes.
I understand that.
Hopefully I won't watch Steven Universe during this fall. Not because it's... Maybe I will because it's ending, but you know what I'm saying.
I do know what you're saying.
I think.
I do know what you're saying. The book that I always kind of associate with fall is I always kind of associate Agatha Christie's short stories with fall. Her short story collections. Alright, so, listeners, mind the dinosaurs. Walk the middle road. Taoism, it's probably not the answer, but you know what? We're going to pitch it as one tonight. Walk that middle road, folks. Have a good night.